Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Kaylin New. I'm the Director of Product and Customer Marketing for Campaign Monitor. We'll be talking to you about all about customer loyalty today. Is that the right one? Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Campaign Monitor was actually started in Sydney about 16 years ago, and we are an intuitive self-service email marketing tool designed for growing businesses. So most of our customers are small to medium-sized customers that don't necessarily have a lot of previous experience with email, so they may be like the only marketer in their business, which maybe some of you, maybe resonates with some of you. So our tool, we really strive for it to be intuitive, so you don't need any previous experience, any technical experience. And we also really strive for the product to be confidence inspiring. So, customers, when they send their email, it's gonna go to the audience they think it's gonna go to, it's gonna look the way that they think it's gonna look on all devices, and there's no regrets or no surprises once they hit send. And we also have a team of experts in our deliverability, service, and support teams that are there for customers to lean on if they do need a helping hand. So no surprise, I'm going to be talking a lot about email today, but not just because I work for an ESP. Email is the most profitable digital marketing channel out there with an ROI of $42 for every dollar spent, which is actually up from $38 in 2018. So, lots of people say, is email dead? Is email a dying channel? I would say not at all. If anything, it's the opposite. And I think it makes a lot of sense because email is a channel where customers have actually had to tick a box and say that they want to hear from you. So they've invited you into their lives. They've said, yes, I want to hear from you. And it's not really a numbers game like it is with display and social. You know exactly where people are going to be right in their inbox. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what loyalty means in the B2B and SaaS world, the power of onboarding, personalization, and a few ideas on how you can reward your loyal customers. So before I worked at Campaign Monitor, I worked for a direct-to-consumer wine company called Cellar Masters, which is owned by the Woolies Liquor Group. So I used to say things like, are you guys getting grapefruit pith on the nose of this Pinot Gris? And now I say things like, how about those API keys? So I was really nervous actually moving from B2C world to B2B world because I think that we talk about it a lot as B2B versus B2C. And of course there are plenty of differences, but when it comes to customer communications, there's still an individual person on the end of that. There's still a person opening your email, receiving your SMS, or taking your phone call. The business isn't opening your email. So I take that, that's my theory when I'm writing to customers. I write as if I'm writing to an individual person. I think that really gives it a humanistic approach. I tend to sign off all my emails from an individual person, and I think that really helps customers connect with the brand. So you'll see this as a common theme through what I'm talking about today. So the word loyalty conjures up thoughts of gold, silver, and bronze tiers and a point system. And in the B2B world, we tend to talk a lot more about product activation and product adoption. And loyalty is usually reserved for our B2C customers or our e-com businesses. So in B2B, there's a lot of ways, and B2C, there's a lot of ways that you can measure customer loyalty. Whether it's net promoter score, lifetime value, retention rate, behavioral things such as recency, frequency, and monetary spend, some sort of health score or share of wallet. So everyone's favorite answer, there's not one way to do it. You have to work out what works for your business and what's important to your stakeholders. But I will say that at Campaign Monitor, I focus on net promoter score and retention rate. And net promoter score, for me, I care less about the absolute number and more about the trend and also the open-ended feedback. So we've actually found that the open-ended feedback we get in NPS is exactly the kind of feedback we get from our churned customer exit interviews. So it's really powerful, not just for product marketing and the rest of our product teams, but also for our customer-facing teams like customer support, customer success, and professional services. The other one that's really important to me is retention rate, no surprise. As I mentioned, Campaign Monitor has a lot of self-service customers, which means they're paying us on a month-to-month basis, there's no contract, and they could really churn off at any time. So for us, 90-day retention rate is super important, and it's an indication of what our year-on-year retention rate is gonna look like. And still, of course, year-on-year retention rate is also important. But there are so many things that go into that. It's really hard to say, the welcome email that I sent to customers on day one is what impacted their yearly retention rate a year down the road. We know that there's a really long tail and lots of customer touch points in between. So I am obsessed with onboarding. I listen to a lot of onboarding podcasts. I subscribe to a lot of email newsletters, and I read emails that are tearing down other onboarding emails. I feel a bit silly having to say that welcome emails are important because I think we all know that a welcome email is important. It's when our customers and prospects are the most engaged with us and they're actually expecting to hear from us. But that's where a lot of people stop, is at an initial welcome email. In preparation for this talk, I searched through my inbox trying to find examples. And as I said, I subscribe to a lot of email newsletters. As a product marketer, I use a lot of SaaS software tools. And I couldn't find anything beyond just an initial welcome email. And more often than not, the email just was giving me like my login details with no other information about the product or how I might use it. So I think this quote from Ben Yaskovitz sums it up really well. Most people think that the purpose of onboarding is to get people signed up to their product. Its real value is improving long-term engagement. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about onboarding, because it is setting your customers' expectations for how their relationship is going to work with you throughout their life cycle. So I actually adopted this dinner party strategy from Val Geisler from Fix My Churn. She is amazing. I would highly suggest that you sign up for her email newsletter. She does a lot of these onboarding teardowns of other SaaS companies that I mentioned, among other things. So Val kind of likens onboarding to a dinner party strategy, or to a dinner party. So if you invited someone over to your house for a dinner party, you wouldn't expect them to just open the door, you throw a plate of food at them, close the door, and then you never hear from them again. And it's very similar with onboarding. You want to welcome them in, you want to take their coat, offer them an appetizer and a drink, you have the main course, dessert, and then you invite them back for another dinner party. And I think this is very similar to onboarding, where you can't fit everything in a single welcome email, and nor should you. It would be so overwhelming for your customers. And it really gives you the opportunity, if you drip feed that information over time, not only to reinforce customers' decision to buy with you, but also reinforcing your value and how you're going to add value to their lives. And I wanted to put this one in here too, because I think taking it to the next level, not just thinking insular of just product marketing, customer marketing, an email onboarding series is great, but we know that we're not the only ones that are having interactions with our customers. So for instance, with Campaign Monitor, my onboarding series is really aimed at getting customers to send their first email with us, no surprise. But they may go into the product and they've got some in-app guidance telling them how to set up their first email list. And then they jump on the phone with their CSM and their CSM is talking to them about automation and advanced segmentation. Now that can be really overwhelming for a customer. So if you think about aligning your goals and milestones with all your customers' touch points and kind of singing from the same song sheet, that will provide customers with a lot of clarity and allow them to get value out of the product a lot earlier. So personalization, again, I feel kind of silly mentioning this. We all know that personalization is important and that it works, but personalization is more than just adding first name to the subject line. And I know we don't all have the luxury of clean data or data in a single place, myself included, which can make pulling out demographic information to use in personalization kind of difficult. But the personalization that I'm going to talk about today is more behaviorally based. So here's an example from Campaign Monitor. As I mentioned, the most important thing that we want customers to do right off the bat is send their first email with us. And we know that good customers send their first email within the first 2 days. So this is an email I send to customers if they've yet to even start creating their first email. So it's based on their behavior, it's relevant and timely. There's a clear CTA telling them to try the builder for themselves. And then customers who have started their first campaign but have yet to send it, so they're kind of in this middle limbo, I send them a different version of the email. So if you can't read it, it says, your email is waiting, it's looking great, get to that finally finished feeling. So I could have saved myself a little time and effort by just sending one blanket email to say, hey, you should send your first email, and if you haven't, or if you have, great. But by segmenting my list and really addressing customer-specific behavior, it lets them know that I'm there to help them and that I recognize where they are in the product. And I don't let up on this. So if after the first week you still haven't sent your first email, which again is the most important thing you can do, I send you a survey just asking you why you haven't sent it and if there's anything we can do to help. So based on the answer that you give, you get sent to a custom exit page with different resources depending on what you need help with. Now, this is something that could also be achieved with customer support rep or a customer success manager reaching out and having that one-to-one conversation. But as I mentioned with Campaign Monitor, we've got a lot of little customers, so for us that option isn't really scalable, but there's a way that you can kind of get the same result with email. Now here's an example of an email that I received from CrowdVocate. They're inviting me to a customer webinar. Now at first glance, looks great. It's got my name in the copy, big pink button, clear CTA. But what you can't tell from this email is I'd actually already registered for this webinar a week before. Now, it's not enough to make me unsubscribe from their email list or unreserve my spot at the webinar, but it's kind of annoying. It's like they don't know who I am, and it wouldn't have taken that much effort for them to just download a list of registrants and suppress that from this send. Here's an example from Salesforce. Now, I searched my inbox, and I've actually received this email from Salesforce 59 times in the last 18 months, and it's the only type of email I've received from them. Obviously, it's a transactional email. I know someone's not in there hitting send every time, and I'm sure that I've done something to qualify to receive this email. But the fact that I've received it so many times, I've never clicked through. And as we know, Salesforce, which might be in the room, is the biggest SaaS company in the world, and I have to think that they could build some logic to either send me a different version if I'm not engaging, or stop me from receiving this so many times. I'm a pretty light user of Salesforce. I log in maybe once a month. It's very ad hoc basis, and I think there's a real opportunity for them to send me things like about new features or asking me why I'm not logging in or what my goals are with the product. I love Virgin. I fly with them all the time, even if it costs more. I'm a gold frequent flyer. I think they do a really great job of their direct mail pieces. If anyone's received their frequent flyer cards in the mail, they feel really special and premium and personalized. And I'm sure we've all flown. We've all got this email the day before you fly out to check in online. You get excited. Your flight's tomorrow. You want one less thing to worry about when you get to the airport the next day. But with Virgin, I'm sure other airlines, if you're flying with a partner airline, you can't actually check in online. So this gets me every time, and I get so frustrated. I think, this is the time. I'm going to be able to check in online. I don't remember if I'm flying with a partner airline. So it's a really bad customer experience. And again, they could easily segment their list for customers that are flying with a partner airline and send me a different version of this email. Now, the last example I have in this section is from ING. So I flew to Japan in January, pre-coronavirus, and I let my bank know that I was going to be using my card overseas. Pretty mundane, boring task. I didn't really think much of it. But a week after I got back from my trip, I get my Welcome Home Kalen email, which is super nice. But they're also telling me that I saved $55 on international transaction fees. Wow. Now, I know that not all banks rebate your international transaction fees. So this is a really relevant way for them to reinforce their value to me. Now, ROI is really hard to measure with personalization with a single email or communication, but our feeling towards a company and consequently our loyalty tends to be a culmination of a lot of little interactions. So if we can show customers that we know who they are and send content that is only relevant and timely, that's going to lead to just an overall better customer experience. Now, rewarding loyalty, I don't know, do any of you send swag to your customers? Anybody send swag? Yes, we all love swag. Now, swag is great. I'm not going to hate on swag, but it's not really a scalable option, and it's not something that you can repeat. You're not going to send the same customer a t-shirt every month. So these are some ideas that I hope that you can use and implement in your everyday. So a lot of my examples, or all of my examples in this section, are e-commerce examples. They tend to do it the best, but these things are definitely relevant for other industries. So this is an email from a online luggage company out of the US called Away. They are inviting me to shop their mini range before anyone else. I don't know why I would really need a suitcase that small, but the sentiment is still really great. So early access is a great way for customers to feel a bit special. You let them know about the information first, and you also give them the opportunity to buy first if it's something that might sell out. And if you're not an e-com company, you could definitely still do this with things like early access for event tickets or a white paper or a marketing guide, just a few days or a week before you release it to other people. This is an example from GoTo. If you don't know, GoTo is a skincare company created by Zoe Foster Blake. They have a women's line, a men's line, and a kids line, all of which I proudly buy from. So this is an exclusive piece of content they sent me. If you can't see from where you are, they're basically asking me to screenshot that rectangle, holy shit, you look amazing, and save it as the wallpaper on my phone. So it's really simple, it's basically free for them to send. It's super on brand for them. And if for those people that do it, you look at your phone all the time, like constantly all day, and that's gonna be like a subtle reminder of their brand, and it doesn't even have their logo on it. Another example from Away, but they're doing a really great job. So here they're inviting me to Zone 1, which is their loyal customer community to help transform and reinvent the travel experience. So they're basically inviting me to be part of their customer advisory board. I think obviously it's relevant, it makes me feel really special, like a VIP, but also it's beneficial for the brand because they're gonna have a list of customers on tap ready to give them feedback on new products and features and other general feedback. I do think that with this example, that could be improved with some personalization. It just says hi there, that could easily say hi Kaylin. And I think a special invitation like this should be signed off from an individual person if I'm gonna be interacting with the brand on a pretty regular basis. So to wrap up, 4 key takeaways for today. Measurement, there's a lot of different ways that you can measure customer loyalty, work out what works for your company and what's important to your stakeholders. Onboarding, setting customers' expectations from the start will create less problems for you with churn down the track. Personalization, relevant and timely content influences the overall customer experience and sentiment. And lastly, rewards. There are so many ways that you can reward your loyal customers, so get creative with what your business has to offer. Thanks.
Thank you, Kaylin. We have a couple of questions here, so I will get them going. So, number one here. So, what are some useful actions that you've seen or used to reinforce value to your customer as part of their overall onboarding or just nurturing strategy?
Can you repeat? Sorry, what was the first 2 words?
What are some useful actions?
Some useful actions, yep. So I think just acknowledging their behavior. So the examples that I gave around the campaign monitor examples where, I've got some customers who have yet to do anything in the app. I've got some customers that have started doing the thing I want them to do, but they haven't finished it. And then obviously there'll be customers who have finished it. And I didn't mention this example, but for customers who have sent their first campaign, 24 hours later, we give them like your first campaign report email is ready. So I really think like acknowledging that behavior of where they are with you in the journey is one of the most important things you can do. And hopefully as product marketers, you have access to that data and it's not something that you need to get from like a BI tool or, brief into your BizOps team. It's all that behavioral stuff.
Yeah, great. Another question here is just, are there any trends you're sort of seeing globally around email communication, anything around sort of GDPR and how is sort of data
yeah, for sure. That's a good question. I have like PTSD thinking about GDPR, as I'm sure a lot of us do.
Yes.
It's definitely, I would be lying if I didn't say that it's impacted email overall, because now if you aren't familiar, GDPR is a set of regulations out of the European Union where you basically have to have explicit opt-in to email your customers, to track their cookies, all that kind of stuff. It's really given the power back to the consumer. I mean, in Australia, we've had pretty good email regulations, but in the US, it was like the wild, wild west. So it's definitely impacted our business and our customers' businesses in a volume perspective. But when it comes to the quality, I think everybody thinks that a bigger list is not everybody. A lot of people think that a bigger list is a better list, but that's not necessarily the case. If you've got a lot of unengaged subscribers on your list, they're really not doing you any favors. And if they end up, marking you as spam, that can really impact your overall deliverability for your emails. So it's my view and our company's view that it's much better to have a smaller engaged list of people that really want to hear from you from a bigger list where, people aren't really interested.
Yeah, great. Another question here. So do you think it's better to risk personalization going wrong than not doing anything at all?
Good question. There are some ways that you can fall back on, like fallback text. I don't know. Does everybody send emails? Is everybody responsible for sending emails? Raise your hand if you send emails for your business. Kind of half of you, okay? So our platform, and I know most platforms give you like a fallback text option. So if you were to say like, "Hi, Kate," and you don't have the first name there, you can fall it back to like, "Hi there," which is what we do. But I think if you're unsure about the data, like you think it might be dirty or not up to date, then I would not risk it, because personalization gone wrong is almost worse than like for the half of people that you got it right for. Although I will say at Solid Masters, we got personalization wrong. We sent an email to, I think it was like 10,000 customers saying, "Hi, John," like everybody was John, which is like every email marketer's nightmare. But we actually were able to turn it into a positive. We realized it pretty quickly. So we sent an email saying, "Hi, now Kate or John or Bob or whoever you are. We know your name's not John. And to kind of apologize for our misstep, we're going to give you a discount." And the discount code was John. So we kind of like made a joke on it, and it ended up like, so I think there are ways that you can kind of make light of the situation if you do go wrong. But again, if you think you have dirty data, you're not 100% sure, I wouldn't risk it.
Okay, great. Are there any more questions from the room? Okay, great.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.